You guys, I feel like we have to understand more about triggers, right? A lot of times I'm inspired to talk about these things because of things that I see other people going through, or shit that I see, like, not, like whether it be podcast, media, TV, whatever, real life, watching people, triggers, okay? Like when someone's triggered, most of the time what I observe is that when people are triggered, they tend to believe and run with the thought or belief that whatever triggered them is the problem. And that is not the purpose of triggers. No. Triggers are messages to the person who feels the trigger. The triggered emotion or the triggered response, or I should say reaction, really. It's not about anything external that is perceived to cause these triggers to happen. It's the person perceiving it as a trigger. That's the problem. Or I should say the root, right? Like, for example, right? Like if I was triggered by something, instead of looking at the something as the problem, it's why am I triggered over the something or someone or whatever it is? Why am I triggered? What is under this triggered emotion? Why is my nervous system responding this way to this? What does it think it's perceiving? Like, if people would just learn to focus more internally, you would find so many more answers than to just take the easy route and just blame it on the external when it has nothing to do with it. It's just an easy route because then people can blow it off and not feel any sense of responsibility towards it that they would have to do on themselves. So it's easy to say, you know what, I was triggered because you said this and you shouldn't have said this. No, but it's easy to say that, but that's not true. That is not true. It's the actual thing is that no matter what this person says or does, or no matter what's going on in your environment, you're triggered because there's something that you did not work through that still affects you, that your nervous system is perceiving to try to protect you from, because you either got hurt or something, or there's fear there, or whatever it is that's whatever the underlying emotion of that trigger is coming up through your nervous system and is trying to protect you. And it may or may not have any relation at all to what's going on externally that you're feeling the trigger around or towards. It may not have any relation to it at all. But our nervous system our nervous system can't tell the difference really of whether a threat is real or imagined. It just feels it. And that's what it goes by. Because its job is to protect you. Just like your brain and everything else. Its job is to protect you and to keep you alive and to survive. No matter what it is. But that's why, thankfully, we have the part of our brain called the prefrontal cortex, where it's more of an executive center and has more of conscious thought and decision. And that's the part that you have to apply to these emotions and these triggers and these primitive way of thinking is the executive part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex. And start asking yourself why. Become more observant of yourself rather than critical of your external environment. And ask yourself, why do you feel the way you just felt? And get to the root of... Sorry, I'm like burping. And get to the root of why you feel the way you feel. Where does it come from? How long has it been there? What other ways has it affected your emotions or perceptions or behaviors? What limitations have you put on yourself because of this? Like, actually go into it with curiosity, and no judgment, just curiosity, and you can start to actually get somewhere, especially with understanding yourself, which creates further self-awareness, so that next time you feel that, you know it's not the external environment, you know it's you. And then you can start to choose to respond differently. You can choose to respond more appropriately to the actual external circumstance, and not what you're perceiving it to be. All right. And not what you're perceiving it to be. And then you can respond accordingly. This is also why I say, and this is a whole nother segment of itself, kind of, but this just goes hand in hand with it too, is to not live by your emotions. Meaning it's okay to feel them, to validate them, to get curious and non-judgmental about them, and uncover the message they're trying to give you about you and what they're reflecting back to you, so that you know what to work on, or you understand whatever they're trying to communicate to you, for your betterment, or what the message is really telling you that you have buried in your nervous system, that you should probably take a second, third, fourth, fifth look at. But emotions are not a place of making decisions, and choosing irrational reactions, and especially basing what you're saying on emotions, can cause a lot of unnecessary damage and hurt and just irrational behavior. So they're not a good place to act upon. They're not a good place to make decisions. They are a good messenger to yourself. And if you discern them wisely, you can learn so much about yourself and why you feel the way you feel, and put your effort towards healing in the areas that are necessary and things like that. But yeah, so if anyone out there happens to relate to what I'm saying here about being triggered, just take a pause. You feel that? Take a pause. Don't just react. Don't just start saying things off the cuff. Pause and take a moment and ask yourself, why did you just feel that way? But actually get curious. Don't come in with the perception that it's the other person's fault, or it's whatever you think triggered you, that it's that, it's fault. No, clear your mind and approach yourself with curiosity and no judgment, and genuinely ask yourself, where is this coming from? And why is your nervous system responding to this situation in that way? Feelings are valid. Feelings are messengers, but feelings are not accurate when it comes to relating to the external reality of what actually happened. Sometimes our feelings can cause us to misinterpret situations or words or communication. And your feelings, instead of seeking truth, are seeking validation. If you just learn to validate how you feel without needing the external situation or people to validate those emotions for you, then you will learn how to handle your emotions appropriately and in a way that affects others a lot less, as well as yourself. You won't just react off the cuff and say things you regret, or make decisions that are irrational or damaging. Just take a pause. See what your nervous system is trying to communicate with you by by it reacting that way. Get curious about yourself, learn about yourself, create self-awareness, and learn to communicate properly without causing any further damage to anything. I mean, guys, it doesn't have to be a bad situation for you to be triggered. It could be something as really small and insignificant that if you turn around and really, my hair is not cooperating. You turn around on another whole day, you'll be like, why did I react to that way? That doesn't make sense. That's usually most of the time. And it usually has something to do with something that you're storing in your nervous system that's causing those subconscious reactions that don't actually relate to what's actually happening in front of you and wasn't a logical response to whatever's actually in front of you. Like, just take a pause, examine yourself, create self-awareness, and then go from there. All right, you mofos. Love y'all.